from Ent Credit Union. I'm a community educator, but I'm going to have Elizabeth introduce herself real quick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I'm also with Ent as a member service rep / BC. I've been with them for over 20 years. Well, I've had 20 years of business experience. I've been with Ent for about 16 and a half of them.
Awesome. So for our presentation, we're going to be talking to you guys about money mapping, aka budgeting. So we have an interactive PowerPoint here. So if you guys wouldn't mind logging into it, so that way when we ask you questions, it'll pop up here on the screen. So I'll give you guys just a little bit. Don't worry. You can do the QR code here or the website, www.minty.com, and put in the passcode. And then, like I said, I'll just give you guys a little bit to get logged in there. It's just a fun way to kind of have some interaction with you all, and you don't have to necessarily shout out your answers with some of your budgeting stuff. So yeah, the landing page should just be kind of like a white, like intro-y type screen. So yeah. Awesome. Everyone in? Cool.
We opened that page to Q&A? Not yet.
Yes, go ahead and get in there, yeah. Oh, not the Q&A. The Q&A is for questions, which you can totally get in there for questions too. My clicker, I have to turn the clicker on. All right, so for our takeaways that we hope you guys get out of this class is some budgeting methods. So how to start budgeting if you haven't already, or how to maybe switch it up, see if there's different methods out there for you. And then we have some budget busters, which is my fun thing to talk about, of ways that you're maybe not hitting your budgets or your goals with your money, and some ways to combat that. And then we also have saving types, because that's a huge portion of budgeting, is putting a little bit away for savings. All right, so in the Minty, what words or word do you associate with budgeting? While you do that, I'm gonna take a drink real quick. So it can be whatever comes to mind or thoughts that you may have when it comes to budgeting. So for me, when I first started out budgeting, it was kind of scary. It was like, how do I even start? So I put scary in there and also restrictive, because I thought budgeting meant like I couldn't have some fun money or ways to go out and do other things. So it could be whatever you guys think of. Let me see if it's just a lag. Sorry about that. Okay, so accountability, I love that word. Savings, yes. So budgeting, a lot of times we associate that with savings, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but just know you can also do more with that budget. And then roadmap, I love that word. So we always think of a budget as, yes, a roadmap or a plan for your money. So great. The next question in Minty that I would love you guys to answer is just something to think about as you're going throughout this class is, what is it that you like to budget for or plan for now? And it's okay, there is a I don't know or I don't plan option in there as well. Myself, I love nights out with the girls, some vacations, life events. So like my little sister just had a baby, so definitely spoiling her quite a bit. But yes, holidays is also a really good one to plan for. A lot of folks don't plan for holidays and then end up putting a lot of money on their credit cards for holiday expenses. So even thinking right now for that holiday season in December is a really great way to start combating some of that credit card debt that a lot of folks have. Come on in. You can come up to the front. Don't worry. All right. So we just started, so don't worry. You haven't missed much. All right. So with that, we like to have a plan in motion. So our destination is typically usually financial security when it comes to budgeting. That's usually our end goal, is to have some sort of security or just know-how of what it is our budget is going toward. So looking at where we are at now. So are we budgeting? Are we not? Are we overspending on things? Are we saving for things? So kind of taking that look at our lives at this current moment can really help you get forward in your life with that financial security. So how to do that is looking at 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses and really going line by line, seeing what everything you are spending your money on will really help you figure it out what it is that you are spending your money on now. And if you like spending your money on that stuff. Sometimes it's a surprise. You're like, oh, I had no idea I was spending that money on this item. So we want to take that picture of where we're at now. That way we can see, where are we going? Are we wanting to get a home? Are we wanting to buy a new car or have any of those other life events happening? So that way we can start planning out for those things. And then again, it comes back to that, what do we want to spend our money on? Is it something that we are spending our money on or something that's a habit? So just kind of taking a look at that. So with that, life events are things that we kind of know about in the future. So it could be weddings, retirement. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's a medical thing that's coming up in our future that we have to plan for. So looking ahead, looking into our future, like a year out, 5 years out, etc., can really help. And then prioritizing that in our budget. So if it is a wedding, prioritizing saving for a wedding or saving up for a car payment, whatever it may be in your life. And then researching, is there alternatives to what you're wanting to do? Is there different routes that you can take to get there? A lot of the time with that research, you can, especially for like vacations, for instance, you can find out that you can save quite a bit of money by going on off-season times, and it's something that you're okay with doing. Now, sometimes the weather is like horrible. You don't want to go on off-season. There's a reason it's off-season. But other times, like you're mostly going to be in museums anyway, so you don't really care. So off-season might be cheaper. So by doing that research, you can figure out those alternatives. And then save, save, save. So that'll be a constant theme throughout, is saving for those things that we want in life. And then know our resources. So kind of goes back to that research piece. Like, are there resources out there that can help us with whatever this life event is? For medical expenses, there's lots of resources out there to maybe help reduce that medical bill or help you dispute charges or just how to do that. So there's lots of resources available to you with pretty much any life event. So definitely dig into that research and gather those resources. So then if you do need it for that life event, you have it right there for you. All right, clicker. I'm going to pass it over to Beth to then talk about, okay, how do we go from there? What are these methods? I'll give you the clicker.
So I'm sure everybody's heard of different budgeting strategies. The 4 basic ones that we have here are the 4 main ones. We have the, of course, envelope, zero sum, automatic, and reverse. Each one has a different way of helping you to get to your goal. Of course, the envelope method sets aside certain amounts each month, keeps everything in its own money bucket so that way you know it's set aside for this bill or that bill, or setting aside this savings for the plan in the future. Your zero sum, of course, is allocating all of your earnings into categories, adjusting monthly to minimize savings amounts, just kind of giving you a little bit more structure. Then we have our automatic, which is hands-off money management, which with that one, basically you set everything up automatically. It's figured out down to where it's got to go, what the pennies are for, and automate when possible. Reverse, of course, is prioritizing savings or debt payments, paying yourself first, setting aside different outlines of how we want to look at
and if
those.
I can jump into, the envelope method does get somewhat of a bad rep because people think it's like physical cash and stuff. You can do that virtually. Sorry, I touched that. Have the TV come down on us. You can do that envelope method online too. At our institution, we can have like 10 different checking and savings. So you can have like 20 different accounts that you can utilize kind of the envelope method. So don't think of it as an old school traditional, like just cash. You can absolutely do this kind of method virtually as well. So
yes. And of course you can nickname your account so you know what each one is for.
Is it going? Sorry.
Or not.
It's me.
Oops. So this is a simple budget. It just kind of breaks down everything, outlining it in the best way. So we always, of course, want to do our paycheck after taxes, of course, because we want to know what we're actually bringing home. Adding any additional income from any side jobs or any other things that you might have. And then you find your total net pay.
One thing too that we like to highlight is that there is a savings category. So you are listing that as money out, like you are putting money in savings. It kind of helps you visualize like, yes, I am putting money into savings. So that way you're not spending everything that's coming into you.
Right. It gives you just basic building. And of course, you always want to find your categories that work best for you. Maybe some people may not have transportation in the form of others. And of course, utilities change depending upon different things. So now, the budgeting rule of thumb. How should needs, wants, and savings categories break down?
So this is another one in your phones. If you guys, it should refresh. So you can kind of guess. So it's needs, wants, and savings. So we have a couple options here, 70, 20, 10%. So 70% going to needs. Or we have another one, 50% going to needs, 30% to wants, etc. So I'll give it just a sec for you guys to kind of put it in there. But this is definitely one of our more favorite methods because percentile budgeting can grow with you regardless of what your money is right now. It can keep kind of at that same percentage type mark. 50-50 here. So we'll go ahead and click the answer. So, woo! So we have it as 50, 30, 20%, but that isn't to mean that you couldn't do 70, 20, 10%. It's whatever makes more sense to you, but just as a general rule of thumb, that 50, 30% is what we tend to offer. Is it go? Okay, go.
And so this is what it would look like if you broke it down. Just using a basic dollar figure, of course, $1,000 to start. 50% of that is on your needs. 30% of course is the wants, and then the 20% is on the savings, because you want to give yourself a good breakdown to plan for those future events, like she said, or even future life events that you might not be ready for. Right, and then
another interactive one. So this one should be like a little sliding bar on your screen. And we want to hear from you all. What do you think for you all is a need versus a want in your own budgets? This isn't what society is saying is a need or a want. It's what you guys feel. With this, we like that 50-30% budget because that 30% is going toward wants. Life would be pretty boring without entertainment or going out with friends or vacations, things like that. So that 30% really does kind of help us stick to our budgets when there's things that we actually look forward to with our budgeting. I think you have to push enter for it to show. Lag, cool. So all over. Do you want to talk about like one of them?
Ooh, still moving.
Oh.
All right. So I mean, most important, of course, housing. You have to have a roof over your head, so that always has to be, something to think about. Some of the other ones, maybe not necessarily a need, more of a want kind of thing. Subscription services, you gotta love those because they can just kind of mess with your whole budget.
Yeah.
But for me, of course, my ultimate is the housing. I have to make sure I have a house over my head, something to take care of, make sure my dogs are taken care of.
Yes. And I love this because a lot of us were putting it in the middle, which just shows us like, yeah, it's kind of a need, kind of a want, which is exactly kind of what we wanted to show up. So thank you for doing it in such a way that it kind of came up that way. But like a cell phone, yeah, a lot of us need it for work, but what that cell phone may look like can vary. So yes, I don't need the greatest, newest technology. So yeah, I don't have it in my want category. I have it more as a need of like, I just need a basic phone, right? But others may want the new greatest technology, so they'll put that piece into the want category, if that makes sense. So same with food. I love that it was kind of all over. So groceries, especially, like, yeah, I need some food to live, but going out and dining, not necessarily. So it can kind of fall in two different categories. So in my own personal budget, I don't know if you do it either, but I have a grocery amount and then a grocery or budget for food going out to eat with friends, etc. So I have two different line items for food to keep it a little separate for that need versus want. Perfect. I think
It's back to
back
Miss
to
Laura.
me. Sorry, I jumped to a lot.
No, you're okay.
So again, we're going to take it back a little bit again. So it's our money and our values, right? So we want to make sure that it's aligning with how we're spending our money. So are we spending money on things that value to us? So for instance, is it a habit that we're just going to a fast food restaurant every morning for breakfast on our way into work? And that may not be a value of ours, it's just as a convenience habit that we've built up over time. So looking at that, seeing this expense that I'm doing doesn't really align with what I want it to. Let me change that. I'll eat at home a little, maybe get up a little earlier and prepare breakfast. And then I can use that money elsewhere in my budget that actually aligns with what I want it to. So whether it's a vacation coming up or even simply just saving that amount that I'm spending and going out with more friends at like a maybe higher priced restaurant instead, that's more aligning with what I would rather spend that money on. So just kind of taking a look and seeing what it is that we value and then align our spending with it. And it goes into our goals. So what are our goals financially and just personally, because that can help determine our financial goals as well. And then the importance of it. So do we value one goal over another, or do we value one thing a little bit higher than maybe something else on our budget? So for instance, like my neighbor does not care about lawn care, so he doesn't really put that in his budget, but he's now started saving some money to then do like the xeriscaping, and he would rather do a really big upfront cost and then never really have to spend money each year to get his grass to be green. So he's now setting that as an importance in his life. So just as an example of like how you can kind of shift some of your mindset of like, okay, instead of spending hundreds of dollars on fertilizer and water, etc., I'm going to spend, maybe $5,000 on a xeriscape and then just not have to ever pay that $100 every year again. So simple examples too of just shifting our mindset of what's of value to us now. And then our mindset too. So with this, with shopping in particular, making sure that we have that mindset of what it is that I value my money on, because it's so easy to get into a store and be like, this is pretty, I'm putting it in my cart. I'm very guilty of that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with budget busters, but just kind of having that mindset of, okay, do I actually need or want this item? Or is it just a really good marketing scheme that got me to put this in my cart? Some ways to combat that is if you're an online shopper. One of my colleagues gave me this tip. She asked herself, what did I put in my online shopping cart? Maybe after she goes and grabs like a drink of water or something, she like leaves it for a second and then comes back, like minimizes it so she can't see what's in her cart, and she asks herself, what's in there? And if she can't even remember what she put in her online shopping cart, that's a good sign that she didn't really need or want those items. If she can say it, like, yes, it's a new blazer for work or whatever, then she can then evaluate, okay, is it a need? Is it a want? Can I afford it at this time? So that's a really fun, great example of like how we can kind of combat our own maybe shopping habits, is just kind of asking ourselves in that moment, do I need or want this? And really having that reflection piece. Another example I like to give with this is thinking about items in terms of work hours. So when I was teaching this to a high school, a lot of them wanted the new gaming system. So I asked them, how many hours of babysitting or your part-time job do you have to work in order to buy that gaming system? And some of them were like, ooh, you know what? Yeah, it's not worth it at that point. I would have to work way more or watch my little brother way more than I would want to. That would be worth for this gaming system. So just kind of maybe even shifting it into those might help you realize if you truly do want it or not. Okay, and then as we talked before, having that emotional connection with our bank accounts can help us as well. So we just had some silly examples on here of like what you could label things. So we have a savings trip for a car. For me, that would be like a Subaru or something like that, but not a Tesla. And then saving trips, like maybe just doing like a really fun like RV or camping or whatever speaks to you. Maybe that does speak to you, I don't know. And then checking account for something. So my team, we love tacos, which you just want some tacos, which is awesome. So we all were like, yeah, checking account for tacos. Like, we are going out to eat. We're going to get tacos once a month as a team. So that is actually one of our like team bonding line items is tacos time. And so, but we have that emotional connection to this money now. So when I dip out of my savings trip to Tahiti to pay for something else, then I'm taking that away. I see that I'm taking, you know, a $500 out of this trip to Tahiti to go towards something else. And that might have that emotional connection to us of like, ooh, like, I didn't actually want to do that. Why? Like, where is this expense coming from? What happened in my budget to cause me to then take away from something that I do value and prioritize? So definitely labeling your accounts if you're able to is a really great way to kind of build that emotional connection to this funds. If you're not able to label them, at least having different ones can help you, and then just, you know, mentally know, like, the one that ends in 1655 is for, you know, a trip versus a different one, etc. So, cool. All right. So, am I skipping over you? Please tell me if. All right. So food, as we've mentioned before, can be a really big part of our budgets that we may or may not realize. This data is from 2019. Sorry, let me take a break real quick. We weren't able to find a newer report just yet because they are doing some more reporting, especially when it was around COVID. They didn't do this report. Excuse me, sorry. But just in Colorado, this is Colorado's number, we spent almost close to $2 billion of food just for at home for groceries, and then $18 billion going out to eat at restaurants, food services, etc. So combined, almost $40 billion on food, which is a big amount. And this graph kind of shows us, so percent of our food budget is pretty roughly about the same. So we have the blue bar of food at home, which is about 50% that we're spending our budget on. And then food going out to eat is close to that 50% mark. But then on the next little bar is when we go out to eat, the amount of food that we're actually getting. So when we're going to the grocery, we're getting a lot more bang for our buck, if you will, for in terms of more food that we're able to purchase. And then when we're going out to eat, it's usually, you know, we're getting one serving, and that's it. So pretty dramatic difference. So with that, on average, most Americans go out to eat 6 times a week. So if we just drop that to 4 times a week instead, we can save on a year close to $800. So a pretty good chunk of change that we can then utilize for something else just by limiting the amount of times we go out to eat to 4 times, so you're still going out and getting some good food. So in your devices, just as a fun way to engage, what would you do with that 784? And feel free, you can also shout it out loud as well as put it on the screen. But I just want to know, what would you do? Can I put you on the spot? What would you do with that money?
Well, I don't eat out like that and do that anyway, so that's sort of,
there you go.
and I'm in a different stage of my life than you, so
Yeah.
basically my big money goes to medical.
Yep. There you go. Yeah.
At this point in my life.
Yeah.
If there's extra money,
Sure, everybody needs a pair of those.
Yeah. So you're gonna go travel. I love that. That's really awesome. And yeah, putting it towards something like medical bills or even like if we have taxes that we owe, things like that is a really great use of just kind of putting this money toward a good use. So that way you're less burdensome. I'm glad you're not spending so much money as maybe some of us on food. So that's great. Yeah. I will say I used to be better, but for some reason, I don't know what it is, but I go out a little bit too often. That's good though. I love these two though, because it speaks to like stuff that we actually really want and value. And And I did tell you it was silly stuff, so don't worry. You know, this isn't like magical number right now. We have to work toward the 784 savings. So yeah, saving for a vacation or saving for a vehicle is really great, and it ties into what Elizabeth's going to now talk about with us. Louis Vuitton. Yes. But yeah, it ties into the savings piece. So we're going to dive into savings now and what it can do for us.
All right. So our savings pyramid. So our long-term, our safety net, and our periodic. So starting, of course, with the long-term, we want to save for that long-term needs and goals. So that might be saving for a vehicle or saving for a vacation, because those, we all know those are not something that you can just save in a couple of weeks and you're good to go. Well, at least not for me anyway. Other people may be able to do that. Your safety net, of course, is your nest egg that helps you in a period of time to reduce loss of income. You know, if anything came up, you had to be out of work for a few weeks, this would be your safety net to get you through that, or a life event you weren't expecting to happen. Periodic, contribute to a regular and use for occasional expenses. So if your paycheck just didn't last as long as you had hoped that month or that week, you have that little bit extra to draw off of and then can replenish later on.
Yeah, and with this one too, we like to preface it as saving up for expenses that we might otherwise put on a credit card. So for me, that might be a new technology piece, saving up for a new iPhone or tablet or computer or whatever, especially for college students, that might be something. They're saving up for stuff periodically and then using this money versus a credit card. Or they might still use that credit card, but have the funds available and they can just pay it off right away.
Instead of carrying over that balance and getting that interest. Now we go to building our emergency fund. So this is a lot of fun. Of course, you got to get started. You got to give yourself that chance to see what you want it to look like, what you're building up to, and your easy access to it, depending upon what's going on. And then, of course, calculating your goals. You want to check them every periodic just to make sure that you're not reevaluating to make sure that it's on goal with what you want to do with it. Then, of course, you're defining your emergency. So what, in my world, what's an emergency and what's in someone else's world was an emergency, maybe two totally different things. And then, of course, knowing your unknowns. A lot of times, you know, we don't think about the unknown. That's one of the last things we want to think about, but things do come up and emergencies happen, and just knowing that you have that capability to have a little set aside for that can help to reduce stress immensely.
Yeah, and for an example of that, like if we are a homeowner, our water heater, eventually you need to replace those and furnaces, maybe some appliances, etc. So that's kind of our known unknowns, like things that we own or have assets for that something repair wise is going to break and we'll need to replace it. So putting it into like an emergency fund is a great way to like know our unknowns and be prepared for those. And then the easy access piece is really important because you don't want to tie it up to like a certificate of deposit, which is a great savings option, but maybe not for an emergency fund, because if you are in this state of stress, like you want to be able to access it and not have to pay a fine or a penalty for these funds, because they are meant for when you're stressed out, when life is happening. This shouldn't be a burden to then pull on from your emergency funds. And then a tip for calculating our goals is to have 3 to 6 months of our expenses in this emergency fund. Now that sounds like a lot of money, right? So just breaking it up into smaller digestible pieces can help us kind of calculate these goals for us. So our utility portion, paying up 3 months of just utilities, and then building on that with our rent or mortgage payment, and then car insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So that way we're building up over time. It's not like this big, huge number that's so daunting that you don't even want to get started. Another advice that folks have been giving is just saving up $1,000 just to start off with. Get that $1,000 in your emergency fund and then building upon it to then hit these other goals. So whatever this looks like for you all, to break it down and kind of have for yourself is what we're asking you to do, is just get started. $5 a month, $20 a month, whatever you're capable of to put into an emergency fund will really help you out in the event something were to happen.
It's true. Just saving on that extra coffee in the morning if you make it at home versus going and buying it somewhere. That saves you quite a bit of money over time. At least it does for me.
Yeah.
All right. And then this wonderful quote, be aware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. Benjamin Franklin. So, and it's true because, you know, who wants to be bailing out and realizing that no matter how many bails you throw out, you're still going to be sinking. So it's always good to find basically where the leak in those expenses is going and trying to find a way to plug it or at least to build it up so it's a less of a leak in the budget, so to speak. Now, on to the budget busters. So these are the ones that help us to try to find some of those and build upon it. So of course, our spending habits. So like she said, take about 3 to 6 months, see what you've been spending your money on. You know, have you been going to the coffee shop every morning? Have you gone and gotten breakfast? Or are you going out to lunch every day? Is it something that we can take a couple of those away to start setting aside at least $5 to $10 each day or each week, just to see if that's something that can help to build that up? Impulse buying. I'm guilty of this all the time. So I have learned with impulse buying, at least for myself, I go to the store, I put everything in my cart, and then I add it all up with my phone. So when I see how much I'm spending, I'm like, do I really need that new shirt? Do I need those shoes? And then I can put it back because it's not necessarily something that I need right at this very moment. I do that with groceries as well because, you know, do I really need that bag of chips or should I actually go get those carrots instead?
Oh, some pleasure is fine.
Yes. So that's where that point of you still want to have fun with it, but at the same time, you got to know, is it really something you need or something you want? Retail therapy. As much as it's good in the moment, it's not good when the credit card bill comes. So it's definitely something to look out for. Knowing your moods when you are out shopping. And like she said, even when you're online shopping, I use the sleep on it method. If I put it in the cart, forget about it for 2 days, I know I really didn't need it.
Yeah.
So that's just some different options that can be used. Do you have any others that you think we should
No,
throw
those
in
are
there?
great examples.
And then, so now we're back onto the Menti, I assume.
Yeah, subscription services, they get you. It's a really big part of a lot of folks' budgets nowadays. This includes cable, internet, gym services. There's a subscription for everything nowadays. So how much do you think, oh, you guys are kind of like right on the money there. Let's see. So you guys are like really close to that.
Average.
You guys know you're in the industry. I love it. So yeah, it's a pretty big number that we think of. So sorry.
No, you're good.
Perfect.
So the thing about those sneaky subscriptions is that they're easy to forget about. You know, oh, I'm just going to try it for a month and see if I like it. And then a month goes by and you forgot that it was going to auto charge your card. And the biggest thing is a lot of it is streaming services. So, I mean, are you going to keep Hulu and have HBO Max at the same time? Or maybe just have one for a little while and shut the other one off? You can always restart them. Some of them even have 3-month time frames where they'll shut it off for 3 months and then you'll re-up after that time frame. I mean, honestly, a lot of them don't move like the shows very often. So a lot of times it's the same stuff over and over again anyway. So sometimes even holding it for 6 months, then you can start back up.
Yeah, these numbers are pretty astonishing though. Like when you look at it, like 74% of folks forget a reoccurring subscription that they have. That's a lot. One example is one of our coworkers moved across the country to Colorado, and she had a gym membership, and it was only $10 a month, but she didn't cancel it when she moved from North Carolina to Colorado, and she paid it for a year before she realized that was on her card. So that's $120 that she could have used somewhere else because she literally was not using that subscription. It was like across the country. So just being mindful of that. I know I'm guilty of one in school. I don't know if you had to do it, but we had to do a Wall Street Journal, and it was $4 a month. Really not that big of a deal. But I forgot about it for 4 years. I didn't know because it's such a small amount. It just it didn't even register to me that was still pulling from my account for 4 years. And I maybe read like 1 or 2 articles within that 4 years to have paid for it. So those are some pretty expensive articles. So yes, super guilty of it. And it is something that's just so easy that you said.
And it seems like it's hard to cancel. So that's a lot of it is, so they just don't want to fuss with trying to figure out how to cancel it. There are now services that help you to cancel those.
Yes.
And it's amazing. I recently found mine on Google.
There you go.
I canceled like 4 subscriptions in like 2 seconds. It's the greatest thing ever because I forgot that they were there and that they were taking money out of my account every, month or every 3 months. And, those expenses add up over time and it just makes it harder to budget.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that lifestyle creep. So this is where things tend to change. So you get a raise, you get extra money, and of course you have extra funds, so let's spend it. Let's have some fun with that. But then it becomes living paycheck to paycheck, so it makes it that much harder to budget for those other expenses that might come along. So then you have to work harder and longer to make up for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's just that tendency to increase your spending as your income goes up instead of setting that additional aside for more savings for something that you want, like a new car or a new vacation or perhaps even a new home.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and this one is so guilty of it, of like kind of keeping up with the Joneses example is a really great way of highlighting this, of like upgrading for the sake of upgrading when you may not even need to. So just being mindful of this like lifestyle creep is so great for folks to just be mindful of as they're moving throughout life. Yeah. Yeah, our last slide.
all right. Money Insight, my favorite, because as an Ent member, you have this automatically attached to your online banking, but we do have a version also for non-Ent members called Money
Insight.
Yes, right there.
You're good.
Sorry, everyone. This is great because you can sign up with all of your other financial accounts, your credit cards, your mortgage, all of it in one place. You can see up to 90 days worth of transactions, plus you can see your current balances. You can't do anything on the other financial institutions other than see it all in one place, but it truly helps to keep everything easy to track. And maybe you have a credit card that you've paid off and haven't done anything with, and suddenly you go on and log in and that credit card has charges on it. It's happened before. I've heard a story from a friend. Same thing happened. They didn't use their credit card. They went on, checked their thing. Suddenly they had all these charges on their card. None of them were them. So they were able to get it shut down and taken care of right away versus letting it continue to go through and then wind up with late payments. The website? Yes.
Nice.
Yes. So under the mobile banking. Yes, it's on the online banking. So if you have our online banking or mobile banking, it is on the menu tab and it is by itself. It just says Money Insight. And once you click on that, it takes you to another screen and it walks you through like a brief walkthrough. Then you would enter and you would basically log into your other accounts. So I'll just pick on myself. I have a credit card through Chase. So I use that. I log into my Chase account through Money Insight, and then I can view any charges that I've done off of that card for the past 90 days.
Yeah.
You sure can. There's a full section for investments, and there's even a savings calculator. So it kind of gives you a roadmap to savings, so you can put in how much do I have to get set aside to get to this goal in 6 months, which is really great. Some of the other things that it has, of course, it gives you the interest rates on your loans and your credit cards. So it gives you options on how to pay those down faster. There's like 3 or 4 different methods that you can use. Right. Yes, and that's all included on there. So you can see all of that, and it does show those. If it's with us, no. If it's with another financial institution, yes, you would just have to log in periodically to just keep the information up to date and refreshed.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely help show you that too, more personal, or you can go visit Elizabeth too in the branch. Yes.
But it's so much closer to home now.
Downtown's too busy.
Once
That's
every
fair.
6 months, you could come see me.
Yeah, there you go.
Gives you plenty of time.
We love it.
Any questions on any other questions on the Money Insight?
And I'll say with this one too, like obviously, yes, this is our device, but any tracking that you all utilize is great too. I'm a nerd and I love Excel, so most all of my stuff is in Excel. And I also like to doodle, so I actually have like a journal that I'll have like a savings goal, so I'll have like a drawing that I do and then I color it in as I save. It makes me happy. It kind of keeps me accountable to that saving goal because it's combining something that I love of like doodling and drawing with my goals. So you can be creative with it. You can have multiple different ways like I do. But essentially what we're getting with this slide is just have a way that you're tracking your goals, your saving, your budgets, etc. And then our last piece here is just any feedback or any questions that you guys may have. But otherwise, that was our presentation. So thank you all for coming and participating. We really appreciate it.